How do we translate the civic values of the Fourth Estate as an institutional actor to the modern media environment? Well, the first thing we need is traditional media to get up on their hind legs and stand up for themselves and the principles that organizations like the Society of Professional Journalists espouse. They're too busy trying to make money and gain audience, and they fail to realize that this is an age of brands, and they really need a brand that says you can rely on the information we give you because we verify it, we test it against other sources of information, we offer you a report that may not be necessarily balanced. We don't believe in false balance, but we believe in a fair report, one that is well informed and doesn't pander to your beliefs, but rather serves your desire for knowledge. Very few organizations do that anymore. They really need to think about their future and realize that news organizations that establish that kind of brand are sustainable.
So what do you think about the future, this next period we're moving into right now?
Well, I have reason to be hopeful and I have reason to despair. And I'm not sure which is more rational. I do think that the democratization of media, where anyone can be a publisher, finally every American has the ability to exercise their First Amendment right to commit journalism. That's a good thing. But these people also need to understand the responsibilities that come with cloaking themselves in the journalistic cape. You've got to be responsible. You've got to try to be fair. You maybe even should try to be objective. You know, people say that objectivity is a false goal, a false god. Some audiences, I sometimes try to relate it to practicing Christians. They say, well, I try to be as much like Jesus as I could, but they know they can never really do that. Well, journalists ought to try to be as objective as they can, if that is their assignment, if they're not an opinion journalist, knowing that they'll never really achieve it, but they will achieve some measure of fairness, and fairness is really what we want. There's three basic things every story ought to have. It ought to be fair, it ought to be accurate, and it ought to be thorough. We're not getting much thorough these days, but we can at least try to be fair and accurate.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I teach community journalism, and some of the principles of community journalism, developing good relationships with your audience and your sources and your subjects, yet still being able to perform your institutional role, is something that traditional news media need to do more of. You know, they are losing audience because people prefer to be entertained. They prefer to have their pre-existing opinions validated. They need to remind people that if they're going to be good citizens, they need reliable, factual information, and they need powerful news organizations that have the resources and the guts to go after the powerful, to speak truth to power, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.